If you are tired of feeling like you need to post on social media every single day just to stay visible, this episode is going to feel like a breath of fresh air. Today, I'm joined by Julia, the founder of Julia Renee Consulting. What I enjoy most about her approach is that it's practical. It's clear, it doesn't require chasing trends or spending hours you don't have creating content that you don't really want to create. As a mom of two and a travel photography site owner on top of her consulting business, Julia understands what it looks like to grow sustainably and in real life. Julia Vocasi, welcome to the show. A lot of business owners and creators feel really invisible online right now. When someone says, I'm posting, but no one's finding me, can you tell us a little bit more about what the real issue is?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. So yeah, when they're posting, a lot of times what I'm seeing is they're not posting strategically. A lot of blog posts that I see from, clients who are kind of struggling with it, they are posting maybe some topics that they're interested in, but it's not actually something that people are searching for or that their clients are interested in. So just being strategic about, finding topics that are going to serve your audience, but also people are actively searching for them on Google or on AI platforms or Pinterest or elsewhere.
Do you mind sharing a little bit more about your background? I know you're very familiar with SEO, Pinterest, but could you dive into that a little bit more for us?
Yeah, so I've had my business, Julia Renee Consulting, for almost 9 years now. I am entirely self-taught. I have no, SEO agency experience, but I had actually learned, SEO and other types of marketing for a travel photography site that I have. I
Okay.
launched that, I think, 10 or 11 years ago. And when I was in a boring job that I was trying to quit in order to go to grad school to have a flexible schedule. So I was doing a lot of content optimization for small businesses, a lot of content writing. And then after a little bit, I started to realize that they didn't know, what I was doing with their content that was helping them rank higher on Google all of a sudden. So that's when I started to focus more on SEO and optimizing their website as a whole. So both their website content and then also their website pages would be able to rank well and, reach people who are searching for their services.
If you think about marketing from a textbook, it doesn't necessarily apply to how things are, and it's so ever changing. People turn to kind of like Google University, and they end up learning a lot from it. You brought up some really interesting points there. Photography is very cool. That's one of my hobbies. I want to take a look at some of your work, but people think about capturing the content from a branding perspective, but then I think there's that next step that they don't realize. So you may have captured such awesome photos, or you have a great video to share about your brand, but they forget about the SEO optimization piece. They forget about how to get the message out there once they actually have the content. So can you dive into, for creative and service-based businesses, what does SEO actually mean? And then what does it also not mean in 2026?
So kind of at its core means making sure that your website is easy for Google to understand what to rank you for. So there are lots and lots of different SEO metrics, but kind of at its core, making sure that you are targeting keywords that people are searching for and that you are incorporating those keywords naturally within your website copy. I see this a lot of times with, like a photographer example. They want to rank for Philadelphia wedding photographer. And I go to their website and I don't see Philadelphia anywhere, or I see like thing in one sentence and photographer in another sentence. And Google is smart, but they're not that smart to kind of like piece all of those different things together. So you do need to like tell them this is what I do, this is who I am. And then it's also really clear for potential clients who are also landing on your website. They can see right away who you are, where you're located, if that matters, and how you're able to help them. So that way they know if you're a good match for them or not.
As consumers, sometimes when you go on a website, it may show up as local, but it might not actually be local. So I think for some
Yeah.
service-based businesses, like really looking into making sure you're optimizing in terms of your location and where you are and what services you offer where is really helpful, especially for someone going onto your website. Sometimes you can field people from all over the place and you actually are only looking to target one specific area. Would you say that that's the foundational SEO step that most business owners are skipping, or is there anything else?
Yeah, that's definitely the foundational part. And then to kind of go along with that is also not having enough website copy. I see very often where, especially people kind of in the creative industry, they are relying more on their photos than on the website copy in order to, kind of sell their services. But Google and AI, they can't really read images. And even honestly, if they were able to, they might not understand the context behind the images.
Okay.
So you really do need to be focusing on having informative website copy, at least, a few hundred words at the minimum per page, excluding like the contact page, which, doesn't matter as much, but you do need to make sure that you are informing Google, AI, everyone about who you are, where you're located, the services that you offer. And then you can go into detail about like the different services that you have, talk about what your clients get from working with you, and kind of like speak on why someone should hire you and how you are different from the competition. That way you're not just, giving Google and AI this information, but also potential clients who land on your website. You want to make sure that you're informing them on why they should be working with you specifically, and not going to your competition, or it's just not a good match for what they're looking for.
It sounds like speaking on your why and also really stressing the differentiator between you and the competitors out there is what would really help to increase that visibility. If someone runs their own business or they're a creator and they only have maybe 2 hours a week to work on this visibility piece, where would you say they should focus first?
Yeah, so first I would definitely focus on the website pages before moving on to the content. So making sure, again, you have enough website copy, you're targeting strong keywords that people are searching for. You even have enough, website pages. I see a lot of times people are trying to rank with just like a one-page website, but that's going to be really hard for that one page to carry all of the weight. So making sure that you have, different, like a home, about, contact, services page. You can even have multiple services pages if it makes sense and you do have, multiple different types of services that you offer. So making sure that you're focusing on your website pages first, because once you kind of have that foundation done, then you have a better chance of those, ranking for the different services that you offer. And then even when your content is ranking, when people go from your blog post over to your homepage or something like that, you already have it set up to help with conversions, rather than if you did just have one sentence on your homepage and someone goes from a blog post to your homepage, they're not getting enough information to know whether or not you're a good match for them, or if they are able to hire you, if you're in their budget and things like that. So focus on the website pages. You can definitely, break that up over a couple weeks if it's going to take you more than 2 hours to write a really well optimized website copy for each page. But that's where I'd focus first before the content.
Yeah, that's some really great advice. I think what's also helpful too is really taking a step back for business owners and to think about owning your audience. With business owners and with creators, they get very excited to share the message out there on social media, forgetting that the platforms can change and the algorithms change. Sometimes platforms themselves go, you can't go onto them for a day or whatever it may be. How important it is to have a website or a place where people can go to find you if any of these situations arise. That's a really important piece. And then obviously there's so much to dive into with the website. Once you get the audience there, it's important too to think about that, the conversion, making sure that it's very clear to your audience what you want them to do once they get on your website. Taking a little bit of a pivot here, you emphasize that Pinterest is a search engine and not a social media platform. Pinterest is one that I personally love to go on for looking at whatever topics it is. I honestly, sometimes, it just auto generates the pins for you. And I'm like, wow, these are the quotes I needed to see today, or this is the recipe I needed to find today. But how could you, if you were talking to a business owner, how could you get them to do that mindset shift to say that, this is a search engine, not social media? And then what content would you recommend that they start sharing?
Yeah, so this actually literally just came up with a discovery call like an hour ago, but they had they'd set up Pinterest and everything, and they had connected their Instagram posts to automatically go to Pinterest. But one thing that's really different about Instagram and Pinterest, for example, is Pinterest is going to be people who are like a cold audience. They're not familiar with your brand. They don't know who you are. Honestly, it sounds a little harsh, but they don't really care who you are. They care more about the content. Whereas like on Instagram, they're likely following you because they like you. They like the pictures that you have, the advice you give, things like that. So your captions on Instagram are not going to work on Pinterest. Like if you say, oh, check out my latest project, that has no context for Pinterest. So, someone who's seeing that pin, they don't know what your projects are. They don't know who you are. They don't know that you're an interior designer or you're a photographer for interior designers. So you do have to make sure that you are kind of shifting to that search engine mindset where you are targeting keywords on your pins. You are giving people information as if they don't know who you are or what you do or where you're located. So making sure that you are adding that information into the pin description as it's relevant, making sure that you have, well optimized pin titles and things like that, because as much as I love repurposing content, you can't directly repurpose exactly what you're doing on Instagram or Facebook onto Pinterest, because it's just not going to work as well for people who are, actively searching for information or for ideas on Pinterest. And you do also need to give Pinterest that information on what that image or that graphic is about to know what to rank that pin for. So it is kind of a different mindset shift, which is why a lot of people get really overwhelmed by Pinterest, because they're just not used to it, because everyone is, really used to, having fun on Instagram and engaging with people, and Pinterest is a very different animal.
It is. Pinterest has so much opportunity though, and I think it's one of those platforms that is often overlooked for creators because you can't just take the content and directly repurpose it for another platform. I was just listening to a podcast with Gary Vee, and he talks about how content now is more around interest-led media. We're seeing that shift start to happen with social media, where people are kind of searching a topic and then it shows up within their reels or their discover page. But with Pinterest, people go on there looking for one specific thing. I think it's a great opportunity from them to get that audience to then engage with you, but they're going on for that piece of media initially. An interesting shift that you kind of have to make as someone that's creating content. So one thing that may help with that is AI, and AI is really changing the way that people discover businesses online. What should business owners be doing right now to prepare for that AI-powered search?
So there is a huge overlap between SEO and AI. So really focusing on optimizing your website, making sure, again, you're targeting strong keywords, because AI, relies on the information on your website just like Google does. So if you don't say who you are or where you're located, AI is not going to be able to, recommend you for anything. Also, content is really helpful for AI because they are looking for information to give people, websites to cite for different things. So making sure that you are focusing on your content strategy. They're also looking for more signals that are showing that you are an expert, that you're trustworthy, and things like that. So having case studies, testimonials, reviews on other websites. So if it's like, Google Business Profile or The Knot for wedding professionals or House or something like that, making sure that you're getting reviews to, again, show AI that you are a trustworthy person, and, people enjoy working with you, enjoy hiring you. Also, one thing that AI is looking for on websites is FAQs, because they don't always read an entire page. They are kind of just looking for like a summary. So meta descriptions are really important for AI, and just kind of like quick answers. So having FAQs on a page, kind of towards the bottom of the page, or even having a separate FAQ page, that can be beneficial both for, potential clients who are kind of like searching for those quick answers, but then also AI who is also searching for quick answers. And then another piece off the website is kind of more of a PR mindset, I would say, with AI, is making sure that you are getting brand mentions other places, because again, it's going to signal to AI that you are an authority and you're, trustworthy and things like that. So, doing like podcast interviews or getting featured in local news, doing guest blog posts, just think of different ways that it makes sense for your brand to be visible in other places. And also, it's going to help your business as well if you are getting, found by other people in all these different places. So I would say like, case studies, testimonials, FAQ pages, and then just trying to get strategic brand mentions in different places.
Yeah, that's some great advice. We actually had a guest on the show back in the fall, and one thing he mentioned was how overlooked Google My Business profiles can be.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes people get excited, they start a business, they open the website, or the Shopify account, and then they launch their social media pages and they forget to create a Google My Business profile. And especially for local service-based businesses, it's such a great like free opportunity to use some SEO in there and to really target your audience within a local area. Reviews through your Google My Business profile are so beneficial. So that's a really great point that you brought that up. People forget about these other little touch points that you can do that make such a huge difference. A lot of times we're very focused on social media, but there's so many ways to get your message out there and for people to find out about you. I also really like that you mentioned increasing your credibility through having conversations with podcasts, also offering any sort of thought leadership, expertise, articles, blogs, things like that, because that also really furthers your business in a different way than just one social media post. So I think that's some really great advice. You work with busy founders, moms, and small teams. How do you help them build their visibility without adding overwhelm? Because there's so many options, marketing avenues. So how do you help them kind of narrow it down and streamline?
Yeah. So with people who are busy, I'm busy. I have 2 little kids and just life chaos. I focus on being, as strategic as possible without trying to, overwhelm someone. So, someone who's a busy mom, I would never suggest blogging once a week, because you might be able to maintain that for a month and then you're going to get so sick of it that you're never going to do it again.
Yeah.
Something is always better than nothing. So even if it means that you can just write really one great blog post once a quarter, I would recommend doing that over than just like, short, less high quality blog posts once a month or once a week or something like that. So really focusing on the quality over the quantity and making sure it's something that you are able to maintain long term. And if you are able to, kind of add in more blog posts as you have more time, you can definitely do that. But yeah, if you if I tell you you need to blog every week and you're just never ever going to do that, then I'm not going to tell you to do that.
Right. Yeah, that's some great advice. Sometimes people say you have to post every day to stay relevant. Now it seems like there's a shift towards having that high quality content over quantity because we see so much content every day that it's about being memorable versus just being another spot on the feed. I really like that you mentioned that long-term strategy. It's important to be consistent, but in a way that works for you. I actually just had a guest on the show, and he mentioned that it's really about that authenticity piece and the type of content that you can create as well. So if speaking on a video is not something that you're comfortable doing, your audience can tell that, and you shouldn't force yourself to do something that you're not comfortable doing. So finding what avenue works best, like a blog post and that cadence, is so important. So really great advice there. When you're thinking about content, what's your philosophy on consistency versus intensity when it comes to that online growth? And is there a pro or a con or one you choose over the other?
Yeah, so I think consistency is going to be what pays off long term, both for like, you and not burning out, but then, also for like search engines and things like that who will rely on your consistency to know when to go back and, crawl your website and look for a new blog post.
Right.
If it is maybe like a brand new website and you're just trying to like, get a new website launch, get some like content up as quickly as possible, that's when I would maybe suggest like launching a website with like, 5 to maybe 10 blog posts written already. But not everyone needs to write 10 blog posts tomorrow. So I recommend being consistent rather than, just trying to turn out as many blog posts as you can. Because like you said, people can pick up on that. And if you are getting really tired by like the 5th blog post and your quality starts to drop, like people are going to see that and, they might leave your website more quickly. They might not, convert into a client like you want them to. So just making sure that you are showing up authentically, trying to be consistent rather than just trying to get as much done as possible.
Someone listening wants to get found online, but maybe they don't have a budget for paid ads yet. What would your 90-day plan be? What would you recommend they get started with?
Yeah, so if you have a short window like that, I would definitely start with like a lot of content up front, and then you can kind of like, space it out in the future. But it does take, Google, AI, Pinterest, everyone a little bit of time to start, crawling everything and ranking your, blog posts or your pins. So I would try to do as much upfront as you can with like creating the content and then, getting it published on like Pinterest. Or one thing I also recommend is not solely relying on Google for your blog post traffic. So making sure you are putting it on platforms like Pinterest or sharing it on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. Because the more traffic that you're able to drive to your site, the more it's going to signal to Google that people think your content is interesting, engaging, and they want to rank the best content the highest. So if you're able to drive traffic from other sources, that will help, give your content a boost on Google. So don't just like solely focus on, posting your blog post for Google. Make sure you're sharing it in other places as well. So I would focus like on maybe publishing a bulk of the content at the beginning of the 90 days, making sure that you are sharing it on other platforms, spacing out some like Pinterest pins so that way you're able to be consistent on that platform. And there are schedulers to do that. I know with, Pinterest that can seem overwhelming, but you can definitely schedule things out. You don't have to like do it all manually.
Right.
And then I would say also at the end of the 90 days, evaluate to see like how you're ranking on, Google, how your pins are performing on Pinterest, and see maybe what topics have resonated the most with people or what services are ranking the best on Google. And, you can kind of make your plan from that point to see what you need to focus more on with your blog post, or maybe what, you need to shift in your marketing or something like that. So making sure that even if you are doing a lot of marketing, you are evaluating it at, certain time points.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a great takeaway. Often we get so wrapped up in our strategy that we forget to take a step back and say, okay, what's actually working? What is our audience actually enjoying? And how can we apply that for the next 90 days? It's really easy to kind of see some of that analytics directly from social media. But what would you say are some metrics or ways that you can tell if a pin is performing the way you want it to?
Yeah, so Pinterest has their own, native analytics. You can also check in Google Analytics to see kind of what your overall Pinterest traffic is doing, how long people are staying on your website from Pinterest and things like that. But in Pinterest, you can check to see, I always check for impressions, saves, and outbound clicks. And outbound clicks is just someone who has clicked on your pin to go to your website. So they have taken the action to visit your website from your pin, which is what you want them to do. Saves are important because that means they're saving your pin and they're putting it in front of their own audiences, and also just signals that people are interested in, maybe revisiting your pin or saving it for a later date. So again, they are taking that action and doing something with that pin. Impressions can be a bit of a vanity metric because it just means that people who have actually seen the pin, but they didn't take any action on it. But impressions are important for just making sure that your pins are ranking on Pinterest. They are being seen by people. You're seeing that you're getting tons and tons of impressions, but like no engagements on your pins at all. That's when I would reevaluate to make sure that you are targeting maybe the right types of keywords, that everything is clear on your pin with, what they're going to get when they visit your website. So making sure everything is aligned, correctly for Pinterest. So impressions are helpful, but then they can also be a bit of a vanity metric because you're like, oh, I'm getting 10,000, impressions on Pinterest, but then 0 clicks. So that doesn't actually help you.
What might be helpful to some people listening, you can actually just save the pins from that URL itself. So you can copy the URL right into Pinterest, and it starts to help develop the pin. I mean, you definitely have to add a lot of information afterwards, but you can at least pull images from the blog post without having to kind of manually upload everything. It is a little helpful that way. If someone's listening and they were looking to start rebuilding from scratch, what would be the first step that you would say that they should do? And maybe are there any things that you would say, don't do this, it's a waste of time?
Yeah, so definitely focusing on your website first. So website copy, having enough pages, things like that. Because even if someone finds you on Instagram, if they're interested in like learning more about you or hiring you, they will go to your website to learn more. Because I was actually just writing a presentation that I'm doing later this month. But I will often, if I find a business on Instagram that I like, I'll go to their website to learn more about their services, their pricing, if they're a good match for me and things like that. Because I'm not about to scroll through their last, 6 months of posts to kind of like piece all of that information together.
Right.
Nobody has time for that. So if they like you from, Instagram, there's a good chance that they're going to go to your website to learn more. So really focusing first on your website, making sure it's set up, well for conversions. You have lots of informative website copy. You're targeting, strong keywords. You're clear on, your brand and who you serve and everything like that, because that's going to help you both with SEO, but then also, if someone is visiting you from, their friends sent you the link to their website or they found you on Facebook or something like that.
Yeah. Wow. And as we wrap up this episode, for the woman who's listening that maybe feels behind or a little bit intimidated by SEO and AI, there's a lot of information, coming out from a lot of different sources, and maybe they're just starting their small business and they want to get started, but they feel a little bit overwhelmed. What's one action item that they could take this week to help move the needle forward?
I'd say just making sure that you are clearly defining who your audience is and what your services are, because even if you don't want to go through, all the keyword research and like analyze all the data with that, if you can just be clear on what you offer and who you serve, that is going to help you a lot, both with, conversions and then also with SEO. So that would be the first recommendation if you aren't ready to kind of like dig into keyword research data.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think a lot of people will take that and run with it for sure. But thank you so much, Julia, for being on the show today. I really appreciate you sharing your insight into, Google search, Pinterest, AI. It can be intimidating, but I think there's definitely some great strategies and takeaways that people can start to apply today. If someone's interested in working with you, what does that process look like? And I'll be sure to add all of your information in the show notes.
Yeah, so you can find everything on my website. It's juliareneeconsulting.com. But yeah, I'd have different SEO, Pinterest, and now AI search services. So whether you do just need the keyword research piece done, or if you're looking for someone to, totally manage your Pinterest account so you don't have to touch it and worry about it, I offer, a few different services depending on what you need the most help with and, what you want to do yourself.
So that sounds so great. Thank you so much for your time today, Julia. I really appreciate it. And I'm very excited to get this episode out there. I think a lot of people will find it very insightful.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. There were so many awesome takeaways and things you can start to apply today. So often when we work in digital marketing, social media can be viewed as the primary driver of how to get your message out there. And that's not always the case. Social media can feel very overwhelming, posting every day, creating content, especially in our busy lives. It's really important to stop posting and to start ranking and to be really strategic of where our content is going and how we're getting the message out there, because there are so many avenues to do so. Julia broke this down into manageable pieces where you're able to kind of set your calendar up for each week in a cadence that works for you. If you guys are interested in working with Julia, I have her information in the show notes. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and took something away that you can apply to your business today. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review the podcast, and I'll catch up with you all next week.